This is Subversify Radio, news for a thinking planet, unbiased, unabridged, uncommon.
With me today is Mikey Weinstein, founder and president of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, a nonprofit organization working to preserve the First Amendment in the U.S. military. Mr. Weinstein is a 1977 honors graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, having served 10 years on active duty in the Judge Advocate General's office. He was also Assistant General Counsel in the White House during the Reagan administration, and is author of With God on Our Side, One Man's War Against an Evangelical Coup in America's Military. Mr. Weinstein, welcome.
Glad to be here, Will. Thank you.
In the interest of time, I'd like to ask my questions, then let you run with the time remaining. First, could you shed some light on the wall of separation, the salient points of the First Amendment which apply, and tell us why the Military Religious Freedom Foundation is important right now at this point in American history. Secondly, you've also said that we're no more than a Tiger Woods 2-inch putt, I'll use your quote, from a military coup. Not only does that send a chill down my spine, but it brings back scenes from the Kirk Douglas-Burt Lancaster film 7 Days in May. How do we prevent this? And lastly, what can my readers and listeners do to help?
Well, I very much appreciate it. That's a wide-ranging series of interrogatories, and they're great. By the way, I often talk about 7 Days in May in my speeches because that, the Burt Lancaster, Kirk Douglas movie and the Cold War movie, from the 60s, along with, some of the others. I think it was, On the Beach and Dr. Strangelove, Failsafe. Were very powerful movies. And look, there's these 16 golden words: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So, we have this. We have what is clearly in our a bedrock foundational aspect of case law, which is in this country, which is that we separate physical and temporal, spiritual, and terra firma, or church and state in this country. That is something that is undeniable. The Constitution itself doesn't say the word separation of church and state the same way it doesn't say that you have Miranda rights, or that women have the right to vote, or et cetera, specifically, although we have an amendment to that effect. We have, just a few words in our Constitution and even fewer words in the Bill of Rights, the amendments, which, by the way, were not passed for the convenience of the majority, but they were passed to protect the minority from the tyranny of the majority. But what we have in this country is a system where our federal case law construes with millions of words what those few words mean. And in this country, we do separate church and state. Now, if you take a look at one of our former Supreme Court justices back in the 1811 to 1825 time frame, I think it was Supreme Court Justice Turner, made the statement that the separation of church and state, the First Amendment, was not meant to prostrate Christianity. It was just meant to create equality between the various Christian denominations, and had nothing at all to do with regard to trying to prostrate or subordinate Christianity to the infidels of other religious faiths like Islam. I think we've made some progress in the last 200 years. I don't think we refer to non-Christian members of, fellow brothers and sisters who are citizens as infidels anymore. And thank God, we have the ability to construe, our U.S. Constitution. We have this system called stare decisis, which is let the decision stand. So in this country, we do separate church and state, which means that everybody is allowed to gloriously and celebrate whatever religious faiths they have to the full extent they possibly, can. But at the same time, you cannot, slaughter people or animals. You cannot use drugs. You cannot have multiple spouses. So we've determined that everybody's particular religious rights, and in particular, fundamentalist Christian religious rights, will always be subordinated to the rest of Americans' civil rights. And that's just the way it is. In our country, Christianity, in this case specifically fundamentalist Christianity, has no special legal place of honor or favoritism over any other religious faith or lack of faith, whether it's Satanism or Wiccanism or Islam, Buddhism, Buddhism, Judaism, Hinduism. Christianity is simply just another religion that receives constitutional protection. Even though we're mostly a Christian nation just by sheer numbers, let's remember what Sandra Day O'Connor said, Will. And boy, do we miss her on the U.S. Supreme Court. She made the statement that in America we do not count heads before enforcing the First Amendment. Now, our foundation represents in excess of 16,000 active-duty United States Marines, sailors, soldiers, airmen, cadets and midshipmen at the three major service academies, ROTC cadets, reserve and guard units, Coast Guardsmen, and veterans. 96% of our clients are Christians, practicing Christians, and the 96% breaks down into two broad categories. Protestants represent about three-fourths of that number of a complete rainbow of denominations. We have over 21 different varieties of Baptists alone. The remaining one-fourth of that 96% of Christians who comprise the vast majority of our clients are Roman Catholics. So only 4% of our clients aren't Catholic. Most of our staff are Christians. Our largest donor base is Christians. Our largest universal organizational endorser is the California Council of Churches Impact Group, which comprises 5,500 Protestant congregations, 21 different denominations, and over 6.5 million, Protestants, both directly and indirectly. So being attacked as being an anti-Christian group, of course, is absurd. Being attacked as an anti-God group is absurd. Our fight is not Christian versus Jewish or Christian and Jewish versus Islam. It's not a political spectrum left or right issue. It's a constitutional right and wrong issue. So it's absurd to argue the opposite side, and I always like to throw in the Voltaire quote at this point, that remember that a person that can lead you to believe in absurdity can also lead you to commit an atrocity. So there you have it.
This is a fascinating subject for myself and a lot of other people because in seeing what has happened recently, not just in the military, but in the government as a whole, this is a scary, scary time for those of us who believe in the Constitution rather than anything else. I've got to get back to the concept of being no more than a Tiger Woods 2-inch putt away from a coup.
Yeah, of course. I've been using that for way before he got in trouble with his wife. So I'm trying to come up with another professional golfer who might be really well known. But what I say is we're no more than a 2-inch putt away from, I think, becoming the fundamentalist Christian states of America, pursuant to a 7 days in May scenario. Look, the technologically most lethal organization ever created by Homo sapiens is our honorable and noble United States military. Period. We're on this show today. And we're not talking about, a problem, an issue, or a challenge. Not at all. We're talking about a national security threat internally to this country, every bit as much in formidability, width, breadth, magnitude, and potency as what we're facing externally by a resurgent Taliban and an Al-Qaeda that this country's most recent national intelligence estimates says is at least as strong as it was on 9/11. And the calculus of the prose that comes up that constitutes the calculus of this national security threat is very simple. We have a fanatical religiosity, in this case, what is known as fundamentalist dominionist Christianity, mixed in with totally misguided patriotism. Throw in a dash of actual, weapons of mass destruction. We have them. The other side, thank God, doesn't have them yet. Throw in completely unfettered access due to the draconian specter of military command influence, and then add another swatch of total abrogation of the sacred oath to defend, protect, support, and serve, the Constitution of the United States. And what you have is a national security threat that is so serious in magnitude that almost no one can believe that it's there unless they're complicit. And for those of your members of your listening audience or reading constituency that remember that we once had a president by the name of Dwight David Eisenhower, who was most famous perhaps for his farewell speech to America. Do you remember what he warned America about?
Oh, absolutely, the military-industrial complex.
Correct. In our foundation, we've realized it took us several years to realize that what we're fighting is essentially a fundamentalist Christian para-church military corporate proselytizing complex. It is enormous. It is also inextricably intertwined into the very particulate of what we used to call the Pentagon, which we now call the Pentecostal gone.